If you're a fan of drag, you probably already know about the diva, the queen, Miss Rupaul herself. For many, she has become the very face of drag, and she's been able to start a complete drag reality empire over the years. RuPaul's Drag Race was the first show that introduced me to drag, and I immediately fell in love. I binged as many seasons I could, and then all the all-star seasons. But it took me a minute to find out that RuPaul is not the only one out there with their own drag reality show. When I first found the Boulet Brothers Dragula, my spooky little heart got so excited. When it comes to the darker, filthier side of drag, there is no better place than Dragula. Just like Drag Race, Dragula puts the competitors through a series of challenges designed to test them as a drag performer, and it usually involves acting challenges, improv challenges, as well as making their own looks to fit themes and even live performances. But unlike Drag Race, it does prioritize some of these things differently. So I really want to jump into why I love Dragula so much as a show and why I think you will love it too.
Dragula, she's a killer. Queen Dragula.
First of all, I think it's amazing that we even have more than one drag show in our country to be able to showcase the artistry of drag. But when it comes to RuPaul's Drag Race, it is such an open platform and it's really blown up over the years, which means there's so many queens all over the country from all different kinds of art forms and niches that compete for very few spots every season. Okay, so the formats between Drag Race and Dragula are pretty similar, but they have vastly different viewing experiences. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to be comparing the main 5 seasons of Dragula to the main seasons of the US Drag Race, just to keep things simple. The 4 tenets of Dragula and what they say in every intro is filth, horror, and glamour. Yes, glamour is still in there.
She is the queen of refuse. Now to the queen of slime, the queen of filth, the queen of putrescence.
So Dragula usually does an entire floor show instead of just a runway to show off the looks that they created. They also do have to face off for the bottom to see who goes home, and they often will have a mini challenge at the beginning as well. Since Dragula is interested in the dark and spooky side of drag, when it comes to the eliminations, which they call exterminations, they challenge their bottom contestants to things that are basically like Fear Factor meets Survivor. I'll dive more into that in a bit, but whoever does the worst is who they send home that week. The Boulets, who I'll introduce at this point as Dracmorda and Swanthula. One of my favorite parts of the entire show is that they don't just show who loses at the end. They have an entire ending portion where the Boulets get to kill off the one that did the worst that week. They do this week by week until they can crown their next drag super monster. So the title of this video does kind of imply that I'm trying to argue that Dragula is better than Drag Race. And I'm just gonna clear up right now that that is not the point that I am trying to make today. By slay, I do kind of mean the part where the Boulets kill their contestants off each week. Truthfully, I love both Dragula and Drag Race so much, and I appreciate both of them for being platforms that drag performers can go on and express themselves and show their art form off. In this video, I just really wanted to highlight how good Dragula is at elevating the drag competition format into an even better way to showcase their niche art form of drag. Like, I love a good theme, and they go hard on every single aspect of this show to really make it all Dragula. I love that Dragula is so personalized to the Boulets and their love of horror and the darker aspects of drag, and they do just such a good job of being able to showcase these artists that I most likely would have not been able to find on my own before the show. I think now would be a good time just to give a trigger warning. I'm going to be discussing aspects of the show that are very dark and often hard to watch, especially the extermination challenges that can be, pretty painful. I don't know how much of these things I'm even going to be able to show, but that is my warning ahead of time. I love horror and scary movies. I have since I was a teenager, and I was still getting nightmares of Samara coming up my fucking bunk bed. No doubt though, as a genre, horror has been notoriously cruel to LGBT characters in the past. I'm not going to be diving into queer film history too much for the sake of this video, but there is a long history of queer and transgender characters being depicted as the evil and perverse villains oftentimes in the horror genre. But throughout the years, many queer people do feel a strong connection and even escape in the horror genre.
Because we're kind of all a family of outcasts. That's what we are. We've invited you into our family. It's what we all are. And out of pain comes creativity. And out of that creativity comes this level of art, and it's what we've all come together to celebrate.
So over 5 seasons of Dragula, the Boulets have dropped lore throughout the beginnings of their episodes. They always have these cold opens, and throughout the seasons, especially the season premieres, they give little more bits of history of the lores of who the Boulets are. In some of these, we learn that the Boulets are witches that perform this competition every year to see who will become the next drag super monster. The season 4 cold open that shows this whole storyline is my favorite. It basically goes over the rules of the show, but explains it in a way that this has been going on for centuries, and that is the first time that we really see that the Boulets are not only super monsters now, but they're supposed to be these immortal beings that have always been doing this. The first season of Dragula, for instance, was a much smaller budget, and it hadn't yet been picked up by a TV network. So for their season 2 opening, it starts with a bunch of TV execs talking about how they wouldn't possibly be able to pick up a show like this. So the Boulets just kill them all, naturally, and decide to make a network for themselves. I love that these beginning pieces of lore, they just tell you that the Boulets are not to be fucked with. And I love even more that for the more recent seasons, a lot of times they have connected these cold opens to the ending sketch where they show them slaying the contestants. It really comes together to make you feel like Dragmorda and Swanthula are these powerful beings that need to be feared, even though later when you get to know them as judges, you realize that they're like a bit more like if Jigsaw had a safe word, if that makes any sense. When the Boulets go onto the main stage before the main challenge of the show, it's one of my favorite parts of the show, honestly. They show their looks similar to how Rupaul comes down the runway at that part of the show. But I just love that throughout the years, it has evolved into this amazing montage moment that they do every time. I like how on different seasons and different iterations of Dragula, you've been able to see how the editing style has changed and evolved. And even down to these entrance moments for the Boulets, they tweak and change the editing a bit just to make each season unique. When it comes to judging, I have to say I love Rue so much, but especially in the later seasons of Drag Race, Rue comes off a little more as a cold, distant mother when she's talking to the queens. I really appreciate the way that Dragmorda and Swanthula deliver their critiques and their judging. First of all, the Boulets always start the judging by reminding the contestants that they are not there to judge their actual drag, but just how they are doing in the competition.
Before we begin, I want to remind you that we are not here to judge your drag. Drag is art, and art is subjective. What we are judging you on is your drag as it relates to this competition and the challenges that we have put before you.
That's something that they really don't have to say every time, but they make sure to say it before the judging. And I just think that it's really nice because it feels like they're supporting their contestants and fostering them to do their best and not get in their heads as much as they possibly can in a reality competition show. And I know that the Boulets do basically throw their kids into the torture chamber at the end of the episodes. But Rue's not that much better because she will make them dance until they can't anymore.
Dance, dance, dance until you die!
On top of that, I just love how the Boulets and their judges deliver the critiques each week. I love the individual moments between the Boulets.
My only regret so far on this episode is wearing this helmet. This is fucking really uncomfortable. Never let them see you sweat, you know? So we have to be like this, like, you have failed.
You have failed.
Oh my god.
I got you, buddy.
I thought Mothra killed the sea serpent for him. Take a fish out of water.
Are you gonna stay down there?
Yeah, some of the fans thought we didn't have enough filth last season. We didn't do enough filth. We didn't do enough.
Why don't you have any? Where's the filth?
So, I know, let's feel bad for ourselves.
Let's feel bad for ourselves. I'm with
Hold
you
on.
there.
Okay,
That is.
And I just love that when it comes to critiquing on Dragula, like, gross and ugly is celebrated. If anything, you could even be too glamorous at times. It's just really eye-opening because on Drag Race, RuPaul and Michelle can be really harsh to some contestants and very clearly favor others.
I did it myself.
That shows you've done something. Because with the outfit, girl, I don't care if you're gonna give me your hog body line or whatever it is. It's just,
I don't want to hear any goddamn excuses anymore.
you're setting the bar so high. I'll be waiting to see if you can keep raising it. Because when you fall, you'll fall hard.
Whereas even though Dragmorda and Swanthula are the horror queens, they seem to be a lot more respectful overall to their contestants when they're judging. Like, thinking of it, the mean critiques have mainly come from the guest judges on Dragula, and half the time they're being playful too.
You need some mirrors on your face too to pull the look together. Make it cohesive. Quit drag.
And on that note, I also just want to say, why don't we get any Drag Race queens able to guest judge on the main US season of Drag Race? Because there have been more judges on Dragula that were on Drag Race than Drag Race girls on Drag Race. There's been Bob, Trixie, Katya, Willem, Alaska, and every time it's always so fun because they know more than anyone else what it's like to be competing in a show like these contestants are. So it's really nice to be able to hear something from their perspective and, yeah, to get them in the seat next to the judges, you know? As a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, I know that it's one of the most recognizable sources of new drag queens on TV. It's so awesome that new queens get to use the show as a spotlight on their unique drag, but something that I find sad is that, you know, not every niche and not every single type of drag is really able to be represented on RuPaul's Drag Race. First of all, it's really hard to get cast on that show that is for the entire country. So when it comes to the horror, filth, the darker sides of drag, there's almost never a queen on Drag Race that really represents that. And some of the ones that we have seen that kind of fit that a little bit have not been the best. Go back to Party City where you belong. I think that besides Dragula being able to introduce me to so many drag artists that I would have never been able to see on Drag Race, like Orgotic, Neohuru X, Dali, Hoso Teratoma. These are all performers that just blow my mind, especially even some of the way that they paint their face is so amazing, and I just know that they would not be able to get on Drag Race, because that's not really what Drag Race is looking for. Besides that though, one thing that I really appreciate about Dragula is that they have never been specific about their casting. And by that I mean on US Drag Race, we only ever see drag queens. And we've never really been able to have trans representation on the show until very recently, because it was not something that RuPaul herself even approved of, unfortunately. So on Dragula, from the get-go, they were never specific about wanting only drag queens on the show, and in the more recent seasons, they have been very inclusive of not only drag kings, but people who represent any kind of drag persona and people of any gender identity. It's been really refreshing to have the standard on Dragula that any and all talent are welcome. It just makes for a much more fun show when there's a lot more unique personalities and drag personas being able to be showcased on the show. Some of my favorites were Landon Cider, the drag king who won Dragula season 3. That was the first time I'd seen a drag king to this extent. Landon Cider has also opened my eyes to the lack of bookings for drag kings out there, and that's really an issue that Landon talks about to this day. There have been some other notable contestants that have been my faves on the most recent seasons of Dragula, like Throb Zombie, another drag king, and Sigourney Beaver, who's an AFAB drag queen and is glamorous. I just had to get that point out there. I think that casting is really the backbone of these shows, to cast really fun personalities that make these shows entertaining to watch in the first place. So I appreciate that they don't put a cap on who they're looking for a drag super monster. Okay, so the floor shows on Dragula, I think they're superior just based on the format alone. So they don't just walk on the runway to present the looks that they made for the theme that week. They have an entire stage where they're set to do a floor show to really showcase the look and the drag character that they designed for the challenge that week. In the very first season, they went from a pretty modest stage to now having their own giant stage, complete with lights and fog and everything for the floor shows. It's so awesome to watch, and one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite parts is, once again, the editing of these floor shows. Each drag performer gets to come out and just command the stage in any way they want to really just play around, and what they're looking for is to just really completely take over into your drag character. I think that the editing, it only enhances their performances, and it never seems like they edit in a way to try to make someone look like they did worse than they actually did. They get different shots, different close-ups, so they really get to play with the camera and how the audience is going to be able to see and interact with the look that they're presenting. And they even will change the music depending on the vibe of the performer. Another fun thing that they do with their floor shows is sometimes they do it on a different location. They've shot on location in ghost towns, they've shot on location in festivals such as Wasteland, they've even done multiple sort of scripted sketches that involve a D&D campaign. So they get a character that is created for them, and then they have to create a look based on that character and perform as if they're in an actual campaign as that character. All of these things are just always so refreshing to see, especially when they can go to a different location, and it just makes their performances even more lively. So one of the most common main challenges on Dragula is to perform a lip sync as part of the floor show. They usually have each performer do it solo, and then they will intercut in between the performances. So it's a little bit more like a music video montage instead of showing head to head to head as they compete.
I just wanna take you down into misery.
This again is where the editing can really come in beautifully and really highlight their performances, especially with different shots and cutting into close-ups. And I think that that really allows them to show and shine as much as they can as a performer. I really love it, and I love some of the songs that they've chosen for these floor shows. They're just so unique. It's a much different vibe than the songs that you would get on Drag Race. A lot of the other challenges on Dragula do connect to the look that they have to make for the main floor show. They usually have them do at least one sort of acting challenge. Some of them include horror movie acting challenges, their D&D challenges, and their most famous recurring challenge, which is their group Monsters of Rock performance. This is kind of a side note, but one thing I think that is fun is that usually the Boulets make the groups for group challenges themselves, and they'll say it themselves that they will choose whatever will just stir up the most drama. Like, we know Drag Race likes to do that and stir up the drama, but Dragula is just saying the quiet part out loud. So for Monsters of Rock, the group usually has to have a solo look that is a god or monster of rock, and they have to do a group lip sync performance in the form of a rock band. So for a few of these years, they've just done lip syncs, but in the very last season, they actually had them even record live vocals to then lip sync over in their performance. To make it even harder, it was also a Boulet song that they were lip syncing. This is always one of the most exciting challenges, and it's so fun to watch them perform. Even though most of the time one group usually outperforms the other by a lot, the performances are so fun to see, and even better when they actually can set aside their differences and work together to really perform and make a great rock show. It's so fun to watch them come up with a concept as a group and perform in a group band like that. And often people even try to perform stunts in a sense. Sometimes it works out, other times it goes horribly. The groups that are the strongest actually work together to make sure everyone has a little bit of the spotlight. And it's really nice because, again, sometimes people might think that these type of drag performers would be all nasty and mean, but really sometimes they can have really wholesome, cute little moments with each other as they work together to make these filthy, disgusting performances.
Come on, Mama Swan, give me the crown.
So because it's Dragula and they're always pushing the pressure on their contestants, they do this bit where before the floor show, they sound an alarm saying, "Attention competitors, the floor show is about to begin. Please make your way to the main stage." And episode by episode, they will blast this warning, and they will do it sooner and sooner. So the queens just have to listen to this and hurry to get ready for the floor show. Over the seasons, you always see them kind of freak out about this, but in the latest seasons, they've really hammed it up how much they are freaking out, because they obviously know that they will do this so early in the point of them doing their makeup.
Attention competitors. The floor show is about to begin.
It was just a little thing, but it makes me laugh every time. Speaking of lip syncing in general, I understand that lip syncing is a very common skill for a drag performer to have. So it makes sense that both of these shows want to show that skill for their performers. Talking about lip syncs on RuPaul's Drag Race, I love them on the show, and of course they are one of the most nail-biting and entertaining parts of the show, but I do like that for Dragula we get them in a single solo performance as opposed to a 1v1 format. Drag Race pretty much always has at least 2 queens lip syncing against each other, sometimes even more than that on the stage. And because of that, the lip syncs are always in that battle. Both of these shows have had other lip syncs that are in groups or group performances, but for the most part, Dragula to me hones in more on the individual performers. Even in challenges where they do have like much larger lip sync performances, like the Nosferatu Beach Party, that one was so fun. And just anytime that they are paired off with people, they're still usually working together to lip sync as opposed to lip syncing against each other. Don't get me wrong, the lip syncs for your life are very dramatic and always fun to watch, but sometimes you might know one performer is known for their lip syncing or their dancing, or you might know that based on a song that one drag queen might do better than the other. So there's a little less surprise to me than the extermination challenges that we get on Dragula. The extermination challenges on Dragula are completely insane, and it often adds a lot to the drama on the show. It feels like they don't really have to manufacture drama because the tension that gets added because of these really, scary challenges that they have to face, that alone will get them, in the back room just, completely fired up because the adrenaline that they have, either having to go do these extermination challenges or being close to the bottom.
That is very... What's your drag? Calm down. Shut up. I'm done.
Season 5, baby!
In Dragula and in Drag Race, a lot of the contestants often form bonds, especially if they were in group challenges together or had to face certain things together. But still, those bonds feel even stronger when the things that they have to face are things like skydiving, eating bugs, getting a tattoo. On Dragula, they do show the audience at the end of the episode who gets eliminated, but they do keep that a secret from the other contestants until the beginning of the next episode. So it does make it another fun little moment where as the people are walking in, they have to kind of discuss or debate who might be coming back that week. And they often don't really know what the extermination challenge was either. Since their extermination challenges are usually pretty out there, it does make it even more exciting when they have done lip sync for your life exterminations in the past. The only time that they have done a lip sync for your life in the same format you would see on Drag Race is in season 5 for the Monsters of Rock challenge. They split this challenge into 2 episodes, so for the first episode, whoever did the worst, they had the bottom 2 lip sync on the spot without any preparation. They said, right now, right here, you're gonna lip sync. And whoever did the worst in the lip sync, they just sent home immediately. And that's the first time they've ever done something like that on Dragula.
So I guess we just do the floor show and the Boulets are like, there's the door, bitch!
I cannot tell you how gagged I was. Like, they have done lip syncs before, but the only one even remotely close to this was all the way back in season 1. And everyone was in the bottom, so it didn't feel like a lip sync battle between one-on-one. Everyone had to lip sync. So again, this moment in season 5, it was so crazy to watch because we've never watched Dragula competitors do something like this. Crazy, and I can't imagine going through all that and getting cut at the end of the episode and not even being able to finish, basically, the challenge that you're in the middle of. In my eyes, the exterminations that they go through on Dragula feel more fair because, for the most part, they just want to see their competitors have what it takes and that will, that drive to keep going. There have been several challenges where those that are up in the bottom are deathly afraid of what they have to do in front of them. But it's really just stepping up to the plate of those challenges that shows the Boulets, hey, I'm here to stay and I'm here to fight. There has only been one person I remember ever refusing to do an extermination challenge, and it was refusing to skydive because they were afraid of heights. And as much as I do not judge them at all for that, it was just crazy to see, because even since then, I don't think anyone has straight up not even tried on the extermination. And that just goes to show you how the competitors on Dragula, they all know that they're in for some crazy shit, and they are all down for it. There was even someone whose fear was needles and just getting pierced, and their extermination challenge was to staple as many dollar bills to themselves as they could. They did end up passing out during that challenge, but the fact that they even stood up there and were trying to do this through their fear, it was not only honestly inspiring to watch, but it just shows the Boulets how much they fucking want it. And for the most part, those are the people who end up staying. The exterminations are really crazy. They practically torture them, to be honest. They have buried contestants alive, putting bugs in there, and just dumping water on them while they're in these graves. They've had people bungee jump, but not just bungee jump. Hike 5 miles in the dark up a hill in drag, then bungee jump, and then hike back. It sounds crazy, but the Boulets are basically jigsawing their competitors into killing off their inner saboteur.
You know, I should start charging people to torture them the way that I do during an extermination. You could spend so much money on therapy, you could just give me like, I don't know, $500 and I'll throw you in a coffin and look how you improve.
Something that RuPaul is always talking about is just making sure that you are not getting in your own head and becoming your own inner saboteur. On Dragula, it will get to you really quick if you have that issue. You have the chance through the exterminations to just get out of your head and push through that fear. No, but really, the Boulets, like, they know this too. They know that what they're doing for these exterminations are not only for their entertainment, but just like rile up the competitors to go even harder in the next week.
The reason that we designed them is to push you out of your comfort zone. We want you to face your fears. That is part of your development. You have to participate in order to grow.
There have been a few people on the show that have been able to come back for more than one season. One note being Dolly and Saint from season 4. They were both on previous seasons, and especially with Dolly's case, she had felt like on her original season, she almost kind of gave up when it came to the extermination. So when it came back around in season 4, it was great to just watch her come back with a renewed sense of self and confidence. And so much of her drag character and persona had changed and evolved even on the outside. Dolly just came back and completely blew me away with the looks that they presented. I love how often they have fun with the challenges. For instance, they had an alien birth challenge that they literally not only had to have an alien mother look, but give birth as part of their floor show. Side note, I know I won't be able to show you any of this without signed parental consent, so we'll just leave that there. Honestly, there's a whole lot I probably can't show you, but you're just gonna have to go and watch it for yourself. They've also performed live on the stage at Wasteland, and for the extermination, got to do like a cage match. And just in general, of course, they often try to have the extermination challenge connect in a way to the main theme of the episode. They've done haunted hospital floor show, with the extermination being a life-size operation game where they will actually get electrocuted if they touch the walls. Another one of my favorites is the Killer Clown episode for several reasons. They had them do their own killer clown looks, and for the extermination challenge, They each had to do basically a little Mario Kart clown drag race. And they even had all the other previous eliminated contestants get to be a part of it as zombies chasing them and throwing pies. Sometimes these extermination challenges are a little more fun than others. The end of the Killer Clown episode, they show the remaining drag contestants in their Killer Clown looks, but as puppets. And they show the Boulets deciding who they're gonna kill off and who's gonna make it next. And I just love that they put that level of detail into just these little parts at the end of the episode. Once again, the Boulets really know how to drive home a theme. Sometimes I even have to look away because of how hard it is to watch. It's also so fun that they even have these themes in the first place. Every aspect of Dragula as a show comes together to support the underlying tenets of drag, filth, horror, and glamour. The finales of Dragula are literally floor shows for each of these tenets, the filth, horror, and glamour, and they often will even do a lip sync as one of the floor show performances. Glamour is often when they do the lip syncs as well, and those have been some of my favorite lip syncs of the entire show. They've also do floor shows for the horror and filth tenets, and the filth floor shows are always the hardest to watch of the entire season for me. As much as I really appreciate going into this side of it, and I appreciate that they don't hold back, it can be really hard to watch because yeah, they get as filthy as they can get. My favorite filth floor shows, I mean, as with anything else, I love when they have a little bit more of a story or a message that they're trying to convey in the filth. Dragula so perfectly represents the sides of drag that are not as often celebrated because they aren't as polished and pristine or always overtly glamorous. The Dragula monsters, they can not only use some of the darkest parts of what they've gone through to create beauty and art, but they can show out for those glamour performances as well. I think that it's important to respect these other sides of drag that are not the most pageant friendly, I guess I could say.
We pride ourselves on celebrating the strange and the wild and the sometimes dangerous side of queer culture. Because to us, drag is a form of radical self-expression. It's an art.
The show is always so exciting to watch, and even though Drag Race is still super exciting for me to watch, after so many seasons, there's a little bit more predictability in the format of Drag Race for me. When it comes to Dragula, the challenges and the exterminations just always keep me on my toes, and it makes me root for my favorites even harder because you see them go through such horrible things trying to prove how much they want to be there and how much they want to win. It's also just really refreshing to have judges that feel like they are a bit more supportive to their contestants and don't just go from positive to really harshly negative critiques on a dime. Instead, they do put their contestants through an immense amount of physical trauma for the sake of growth. I guess Drag Race does that too. But, just kidding, I know both of these shows have to push their contestants in different ways, and that's all part of the process in a competition. But, you know, because there's already so much intensity in the show of Dragula, it seems like the Boulets are a little more down to earth, or they just try to be kind when delivering the critiques that they have. I wanted to end this by showing one of my favorite clips from Dragula, and it's a clip of the very first drag super monster, Vander Von Odd. When they came back for season 2, they were talking to some of the contestants, and it just really nailed what I love about this show.
I think for me, a super monster is very much someone who has personally witnessed kind of the nasty of the world and the evils of the world. It's the bullied kids. It's, you know, the kids who are left out. And I think that's why gay people or queer people as a community tend to have such a connection to horror films or to the villains, because the villains in the horror characters were the ostracized, the weird, the ones who weren't understood, but they took all the things that made them different and turned them into their power.
At the end of the day, it's about these drag performers being able to show off their skills and be able to connect to a wider audience. And I think both Drag Race and Dragula are great shows for that. If you really want to support drag, I think that it's important to go out there and support your local drag artists when you can. Also go out there and ask for what you want to see represented in your local drag artists. Go out and ask for more drag kings to be booked and more people in the alternative and horror spaces if that's something that you like. Go out and support them in any way you can, and if you can support them with your dollars, definitely do that. So I think that about covers it. When it comes to drag, I will really eat up any show about drag that I can get my hands on. So I love and appreciate both of these shows. If I had to choose what my favorite would be between Dragula and Drag Race, it's hard, but I would probably have to say that's weird. Wait, isn't this a patio?
And that's it. And that's it.
And that's it. And you know what? That's it.